Going to the SEC a little bit early. We'll talk a little David Hicks, more transfer portal stuff on today's live edition of Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners live on Monday night. Today's episode is brought to you by Sling TV. Don't miss out on any of the bowl action this winter by not having the access that Sling TV provides. So go check out Sling TV. It's the TV you love for a price you'll love. Try it today. My name is John Williams. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at thesoonerswire.com. You can also check out Josh Helmer, my buddy here, on 94.7 The Ref in Norman. Follow him on Twitter at JoshOnRef. He's Monday through Friday from 9 to noon. Josh, let's start with recruiting because Monday night brought a couple new Sooners to town as Deshaun McCullough, the Indiana transfer edge player, decided to commit to Oklahoma. His little brother, Day McCullough, also committed to the Oklahoma Sooners, the four-star safety, also out of Indiana.
Yeah, it's huge, right? It's huge. We knew that obviously Oklahoma was looking to upgrade via Deshaun McCullough from Indiana out of the transfer portal. Knew that offer was out there, but obviously, even though there were crystal balls and some positive forecasts out there, until you see that confirmation and the tweet from one Deshaun McCullough and his younger brother, Day McCullough, then it's just that. It's speculation, right? I know that, that's not to say, Parker Thune and a bunch of the guys that do this professionally do a really good job. They got, generally speaking, I think I've said it, I don't know how many times, John, but 9.5, 9.8 times out of 10, those guys have it, exactly right what's going to happen until maybe something changes late in the game. So, but that being said, it's just speculative until you actually see it finalized, and to see it finalized for Oklahoma with Deshaun McCullough tonight. 49 tackles, 6.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, 3 pass breakups, 6'5", 235. Somebody that can fly around and make big-time plays for Oklahoma defensively, to pair with Jacob Lacey, who they've gotten out of the transfer portal as well. Lacey probably a little bit more you're sort of hoping that you see that kind of production. We've seen it with Deshaun McCullough, right? So it's a massive ad for Oklahoma. I don't think that, I don't think we downplay the thing. It's a huge pickup for an Oklahoma defense that, John, needed help straight away.
Yeah, Deshaun McCullough, an impact player that the Oklahoma Sooners can throw into their edge rotation, could even compete for a starting job in 2023. A guy, like you mentioned, the stats they're there. True freshman player. He was productive on an Indiana defense that was up and down throughout the year in a Big Ten. That's a tough conference to play in. So it's a huge addition for them to get somebody that can come and step in right away and add a pass rush ability that at times in 2022 was missing. It just went dormant from time to time. And so love the addition. It's huge. And then you add the little brother, Day McCullough, who is a really good player in his own right. Watch the huddle highlight film of him. I really like the way he plays the game, flies downhill. He's a physical player. He loves to tackle. He's going to wrap up when he does. He's not a shoulder tackler like we've seen at times. And probably this comes from having a father who's a football coach, someone who's going to really hone in on the details and make sure to hammer those things home. So really love both of those additions. I think, you add Day McCullough, it gives you a little bit of security if you don't end up flipping Peyton Bowen, which still seems to be the likelihood for the Sooners, is to add him. So if you get Peyton Bowen and Day McCullough, you get both. You get 2 really good safeties. Peyton's probably more of a free. Day McCullough is more of a strong safety type, but it just adds depth to Billy Bowman, what you have. And you think you've got a really good player there. And I think he flashed some really good things throughout the season. Robert Spears-Jennings, who is also an ascending player, I think. He only played a little bit, but what I saw out of Robert Spears-Jennings, I really like. Then you add these 2, you add Peyton, you add Day, you got a really nice safety group that you're building toward the future. It's looking really, really strong for the Oklahoma Sooners. They're not done, though. This is just the beginning. I mean, we've seen them already add through the transfer portal. They've been crazy busy on the wide receiver market. And that's kind of where I want to turn here now, Josh, before we kind of move on to the OU, Texas to the SEC stuff. Oklahoma's offered 5 wide receivers in the transfer portal market that I've counted. Guys from various levels. You're looking at Arizona, you're looking at La Tech, you're looking at Idaho State, just guys all across the board. But to me, it says maybe a couple different things. One thing it could say is that Marvin Mims isn't coming back, and they're looking for somebody that can step in and be a wide receiver 1 for them right away. The second thing that it could potentially mean is that they don't really like the depth that they have at wide receiver, even if Marvin Mims returns.
Well, I do think there's a safety valve option to it, though it feels like, and Parker Thune said as much on the airwaves today, that sort of he felt the momentum all of a sudden was for Marvin Mims to return to Oklahoma. He's kind of been on that train, feels like, for the last couple of weeks. That, to me, again, it's going to be a surprise for me. If Marvin Mims is back at Oklahoma, I trust that it is headed in that direction based on Parker Thune's sourcing and what he's hearing. But to me, somebody like Mims that absolutely would get drafted, I think no later than the second round, John. I'm just going to be a little more wait and see with it. But, at the very least, Oklahoma, obviously, because of all of that with Mims, right? Whether he's coming back for sure, or whether Oklahoma is thinking that, okay, well, we know that there's a possibility that he's, best case scenario, late first round, probably more than likely definite second round if he decides to go. You're guarding against that. And you say, okay, we've already lost Theo Weiss out of the transfer portal. We got to go get skill guys. And Oklahoma's in the market for a couple of proven skill guys. Even the young guys that OU brought in this past season in this last signing class, John, I think both Jaden Gibson and Nick Anderson can turn into stars at Oklahoma. But the bottom line, we haven't seen much production out of either so far at OU. So with that in mind, all of those things combining, those forces joining together to lead this Oklahoma staff to kind of make the smart play, I think, which is, look, we've had 15, 16 guys exit via the transfer portal. Let's go ahead and bring a couple guys in that are skill guys from the transfer portal and just take a couple of chances. So JJ Hester and who's the other name I'm blanking on, John?
My favorite player. Yeah, that was my guy.
Oh yeah, no, that was your 2,000-yard receiver this season. But neither one of those guys. I'm just teasing out there, everybody. Yeah. Both of those two guys, it didn't really pan out for necessarily for Oklahoma this year, but I don't think that makes you bashful from shying away from bringing in proven guys that have been productive. So hopefully Oklahoma is going to hit on a couple of those guys. I think OU will before it's all said and done. It sounds like Singer. Sounds like there's a good chance there, and we'll see about maybe even 2 more beyond that.
Yeah, I think it's a place where they definitely need to add some depth because, beyond Mims, beyond Farouk, if you get Drake Stoops to come back, that'd be even better. But if you don't have maybe one of those 3, even if you have all the 2 of those 3 guys back, you don't have Mims, you just don't have somebody you believe is a number 1, a legit number 1 receiver yet. Again, we're prefacing all this with yet. Jaden Gibson, Nick Anderson, they could develop into that. Jalil Farouk himself could develop into that. We just haven't seen that. I mean, Jalil Farouk, at times, he had really good stretches of play throughout the season, even games where he played really, really well. And then he'd have games where it was just not great. You're like, where did you go, Jalil Farouk? So that's kind of a big issue here. The 3-drop game that he had, I can't remember which game it was exactly, but I think that probably killed some of the trust that he might have with the coaching staff. Now, he can build off of that. He can improve from that. But I think they've got to be active in the transfer portal market. We'll have a little bit more recruiting. We've got to talk a little bit about David Hicks because there was an interesting story from On3 that basically, in my mind, said, show me the money. But first, we're going to take a break and we're going to talk about our friends over at Omaha Steaks.
It's time to make somebody happy this holiday season. It's time to make the call and get that Christmas gift that'll make somebody very happy from Omaha Steaks. The gift of Omaha Steaks, it's tremendous this time of year. The quality, the convenience, everything you need to deliver an unforgettable holiday experience. Omaha Steaks is America's original butcher since 1917. It's a holiday staple. And since the holidays are here, why not just let the steak experts take care of it for you, right? Get rid of the thinking. If you're anything like me, John, I probably freak out a little bit too much over the gift giving portion, right? I stress out, is this gift going to be something that they will like? Well, if you got a steak lover in your life, I can guaranteed that they're going to like Omaha Steaks. So put the steak experts to work for you and have them put together that special curated gift package to, again, take that guesswork out of the gifting and make you a holiday hero. Go to omahasteaks.com, use the code locked on at checkout to get $30 off your order. That's locked on at checkout to get $30 off your order. So we've got a ton of Peyton Bowen comments out there. How do you feel about Peyton Bowen for OU, John? I mean, Parker's been very, very outspoken that this is someone that right here on this podcast and on, I'm sure, all of the platforms that Parker is privileged to broadcast on or bring you information on. He's been very out in front saying that he will believe it when he sees it, that Peyton Bowen's not going to be an Oklahoma Sooner. He's been very much, I mean, this is going to happen. Doesn't know when, but the flip for Peyton Bowen's happening at some point. Where do you stand with that, and what would it mean for Oklahoma? I know we got David Hicks to talk about, but just since a couple of people are asking about Bowen.
Yeah, I mean, I feel confident. I mean, if Parker's feeling pretty good about it, then I'm going to feel pretty good about it. I mean, Parker's the guy that's in the know on this, and so I'm going to trust that he knows what he's talking about. I got my guy Bryant Cruz over at Sooners Wire too. That I trust his information as well, and he's liking where things are heading as well. Bryant's here in the chat, offering us some thoughts as well. We'll have to bring Brian on at some point in time too. He's kind of my recruiting guy over there at Sooners Wire. But I feel great about Peyton Bowen. I feel like it's just a matter of time, and it could be early signing period. It could be National Signing Day. We'll see when that flip happens. I did have an interesting thing as I was writing up my Dave McCullough commitment piece for Sooners Wire this evening. That it's interesting. They're going to get Dave McCullough. His dad coaches at Notre Dame. They could potentially also flip a guy from Notre Dame as well. So I don't know. It's very, very interesting. Just real quick before we get to David Hicks stuff, people asking about Braylon Presley. I mean, I think that's going to be a recruitment that's going to be, we haven't seen anything public yet as far as Oklahoma's interest in that, as far as I'm concerned. Like, I haven't seen anything from Braylon as far as I've noticed. But if they're interested, there won't be the only team that's interested. Same with the 5 guys that they've already offered. I mean, they're going to be in recruiting battles for all those guys, especially a guy like, Dorian Singer. Like, that's a really good player that a lot of people are going to be going after. So make sure you kind of preface your expectations a little bit, or kind of temper your expectations, because Oklahoma's going after these guys, but I mean, they're going to have opportunities to have maybe bigger roles in certain places. People are mentioning Tulsa. Courtney is in the chat talking about Tulsa. And there's a place where, Braylon Presley could probably go in and be the number 1 wide receiver for them right away, as opposed to having to compete for snaps at a place like Oklahoma. So it's just one of those things to kind of watch and monitor, and potentially his recruitment and then that of his brother Brennan will be kind of ongoing. We might not know anything about that in the short term. It might be something that we see more long-term on that front. Now to David Hicks. On3 basically had an article that said it's going to be really, really difficult to pry David Hicks away, or his dad was saying it was going to be difficult to pry David Hicks away from Texas A&M. What does that mean? Again, to me, it means show me the money. Like, who's going to fork out the dollars to get my kid's commitment and his playing time at your university? Parker, we had on last week, and we asked him about it, and he is kind of the mind that he's not going to venture a guess as to what David Hicks is going to do. He didn't outright say it was about the money. He didn't even say really anything specifically what it could be about or not. But it just does seem like this is becoming one of those situations that Oklahoma is maybe not going to be as involved in as we might once have thought.
Yeah, this is probably naive of me, and you're probably exactly right that it was a show me the money type comment, but I didn't really take it that way from David Hicks's dad. I took it as putting it out into the public sphere that, believe it or not, regardless of all of the smoke and flames out there about, hey, the Hicks recruitment is all about money, that actually he likes some of the teammates and people around Texas A&M, contrary to some of our discussions and others out there. Not saying that NIL is not a factor. I don't know. I guess I perceived that quote a little bit differently from Hicks's dad. But long story short, I mean, look, regardless of what the quote meant, I'm with you. To me, it would be a big surprise if Hicks winds up at Oklahoma, right? I mean, at this point, don't you feel that way? I mean, we're so late in the game. I mean, you don't rule it out, and because he's a 5-star kid and the type of impact that he could make on Oklahoma, you're going to recruit this thing down to the wire until there's ink across that paper, right, on the fax back, or however these letters of intent get sent back to these universities nowadays. But look, I don't know that that's one that you feel super, super confident about.
No, and again, talking with my guy Bryant, we were talking earlier in our Discord channel about it, and yeah, you don't want to miss out on any 5-star talent, but what you got coming in 23 is great with Adepoju Adebare, with Derek LeBlanc. I really like Ashton Sanders. I really like Taylor Wayne. It's a good group. Like, it's going to be a really good group. And then what you got coming in 2024 with just David Stone, like the projections, and you talk to most everybody, and everybody's kind of thinking David Stone is going to be a Sooner. I mean, Michigan State will have something to say about that. And they were able to pluck by Job out of Norman up there to Lansing. So that'll be a difficult recruitment, but again, you're feeling pretty comfortable where you're at in that recruitment a year plus before the 2024 National Signing Day. So yeah, you don't want to miss out on 5 stars. You just don't. It sucks to do that, but we've seen that this coaching staff can recruit and they know how to identify talent. And I think there'll be, again, I'm really high on Ashton Sanders and Taylor Wayne. I think, yeah, they got 3 stars next to their name, but I think these are going to be 2 guys that outperform their recruiting ranking by the time it's all said and done in Norman. And that's not just to say because we had Ashton Sanders on the show. He's a good kid, but I just really like the way he plays. I just love his athleticism. So if you miss out on David Hicks, like, okay, you're going to have a good chance to see a player really develop under Todd Bates, under Miguel Chavis, under Brent Venables, and perform his projection. Yeah, it is what it is. It's the kind of the new world order of recruiting. Nothing's final until it's final. And I think, like you said, like, never really close the door on anything, because what if a lot of this is just kind of like, hey, we're putting this out there to see what else might come our way, but we're really, really still interested in coming to Oklahoma, but we're going to see if somebody might put out a little bit more to entice us. It's negotiations. You know what I mean? Like, you don't settle on your first offer. You kind of wait it out a little bit, and deadlines make deals. Like, from covering the NFL, players on the franchise tag, this is kind of the best, correlation I can make. Players on the franchise tag not signing that tender up until either the deadline or trying to get a contract extension or a big time contract before the deadline. It's the deadline that makes deals. You don't rush anything. Not to say this is all about the money, but I think there's going to be a little bit of part of that, but that's just where that's at.
Well, and hopefully, look, because of the way college football is today, John, I know that there's so much put around the Hicks recruitment because he's a 5-star kid. Everybody gets that, right? Felt like Oklahoma had a really good fight in this recruitment early on. In fact, there were the crystal balls out there pointing in Oklahoma's direction, and then lo and behold, you get burned, and you're kind of led to believe that it was name, image, likeness, and Oklahoma, quote unquote, didn't pony up in that regard. Hopefully there's another surprise or two out there. And not that Deshaun McCullough would be a surprise. I mean, feels like, because we'd heard so much about this over the last couple of weeks, that it's in no way a surprise tonight, right? That Day and Deshaun McCullough are committed and coming to Oklahoma. Hopefully there is 1 more or 2 more transfer portal names like that. There are some defensive players that have made plays that are looking for homes, that hopefully Oklahoma can be that landing spot, that maybe there's a surprise or 2 from Oklahoma before this is all said and done. It doesn't have to be David Hicks, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I hate to say it, there's a lot of fish in the sea, but I mean, it just came to my mind. But hey, we're going to talk about the news that Oklahoma and Texas might be going to the SEC a little bit early. Now that I finally backed off of my they're going to go in 2023 or 2024 prediction, now it looks like they're going to go in 2024, and we'll talk about that after I talked about Built Bar. Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar ever. If you haven't tried it, you're missing out. It's 130 to 180 calories, 19 grams of protein, 4 grams of sugar, 5 grams of sugar. It's great for you. It tastes great. It's 100% covered in chocolate, and they've got great flavors. My favorite is the peanut butter brownie. It's got great texture and great taste as well. If you haven't tried Built Bar, now's the time to get in. Or, hey, if you're looking to give a gift, you can go to built.com also and maybe gift some Built Bar to somebody. They also have great granola bars as well. I'm a big granola fan. I love granola bars. And these were really huge for me when they first launched these. I had like 4 or 5 boxes headed my way when they dropped the granola bars. So go to built.com, use promo code LOCKEDON15 to get 15% off your first or next order over at built.com. Again, that's built.com. Use promo code LOCKEDON15 to get 15% off your next order at built.com. Kendall. All right. So Brett McMurphy of the Action Network dropped a story this morning saying that momentum has been gained, and there is a growing kind of thought out there that Oklahoma and Texas will be heading to the SEC in 2024. He believes that an early exit agreement will be reached sometime in the next month, Josh.
Yeah, it's obviously a massive report, and here was the quote from Brett McMurphy from his Oklahoma, Texas, gaining momentum to leave the Big 12, join the SEC early. Quote, there is growing sentiment and momentum for OU and Texas to leave the Big 12 a year early and join the SEC in 2024. And then he goes into, the grant of rights and what the situation, we all know it expires July 1st, 2025. And he listed these as some of the big factors why this could be happening now, John. A, the Big 12 securing its new media rights deal. B, the Big 12 having decided to add 4 teams for this upcoming season and beyond. And then the fact that the Big 10 will be growing to 16 teams in 2024 with USC and UCLA, and that coinciding with the first year of the college football playoffs expansion to 12 teams. I get all that. It definitely makes sense. I thought the most newsworthy portion of all of this was that basically it was this line that you mentioned, John. Quote, however, that timetable has since been accelerated and could even get completed by next month, sources said, end quote. Maybe he's right on this thing, but I'll officially believe it when I see it. And then he went into this big, long explanation of, will ESPN be willing to pay the increased amount to the SEC? And, oh, by the way, buy out Oklahoma and Texas. And I get there's some motivation there to just get OU and Texas into the SEC straight away. And I hope that this happens for Oklahoma and Texas both. And honestly, the Big 12, I think to some degree should want this to happen just to rip the Band-Aid straight off, John. But man, I'll believe it when I see it that ESPN is just going to buy OU and Texas out, right? I mean, to me, if this happens, OU and Texas separately are going to work some negotiation, whether it's the figure that McMurphy kind of threw out there, that maybe they would negotiate it down from the 80-some million to 50 million. It would have to be that. I don't see ESPN saying, yeah, we're going to pay the SEC more. And, oh, by the way, buy OU and Texas out. They might buy Texas out because they've got the Longhorn Network, John, but I don't know if they're doing OU any favors on the deal. I wish they were.
My only thought on that front is Sooner Vision. That Sooner Vision kind of provided the doorway for ESPN to quote unquote pay the early exit agreement. I've long since thought it's really strange to say, hey, we're going to leave, but not for 2 years. Like, imagine like your girlfriend coming to you and like, hey, I'm going to break up with you, but not for 2 more years. Like, I'm still going to let you buy me dinner and take me out to the movies and, make sure we get Christmas gifts and things like that. But, like in 2 years or so, it's going to be done and I'm going to move on to something else. Like, it's just odd. Like, it's an odd dynamic that Oklahoma and Texas, that the Big 12 really would want that to kind of stick around. And yes, they're the beneficiary of Oklahoma and Texas sticking around. But at some point, you want to kind of create your new identity. And do you really want to wait till 2025 to start that? You're bringing in 4 new teams. You just showed the Big 12 just had a great season. Like, I really enjoyed Big 12 football this year, Oklahoma Sooners football aside. I thought it was really fun. And the ratings kind of bore that out, especially on the championship weekend where the Big 12 came in. I think it was third in the ratings and not far behind the Big 10 from what I remember. So the Big 12 really has a lot going for it, a lot of momentum right now heading into the offseason, especially with TCU heading to their first playoff. They can look at this and be like, hey, you know what? Yeah, Oklahoma and Texas, it'd be great to have them, but let's just start creating our own identity without Oklahoma and Texas. Let's get there as soon as we possibly can and not worry about yes, it's millions of dollars, but if we can negotiate a buyout with those 2 teams, it'll be okay, because then it's just going to create an opportunity for our members to take center stage. Whereas right now it's Oklahoma and Texas, even though Oklahoma just went 6-6, Texas was 8-4, didn't play in the Big 12 championship game. What's all the talk every single year, right? Leading into the season, it's Oklahoma and Texas. What's the talk when you look at the national media sites? It's Oklahoma and Texas. And are they going to be able to bounce back and rebound or get to the Big 12 championship game? That's going to be the talk next summer. And it's going to be about Oklahoma. I think it's best for everybody involved to just create, get this agreement done and see a split, because it allows the Big 12. I mean, from a Big 12 perspective, it just allows them to move forward and be the conference they want to be, or are going to have to be, really, without Oklahoma and Texas.
So if for that final year combined, OU and Texas bought out for a combined, $80 million, wouldn't that be about making the Big 12 whole, right? In terms of, I mean, the contract is what the contract is, first of all, right? With the grant of rights. Maybe if OU and Texas leave, that would, there's probably some language in there to where it could maybe even alter the payouts to some of those other schools. But if you've got the $80 million combined from OU and Texas, I mean, to me, I don't think that any of those schools are going to be making any less than they would be for that year. So if financially you've been made whole, then probably everybody, is down with, okay, go on and get on out of here. That's good from Sooners to win. I wanted to talk a little bit about at Okie Lawn Guy's comment that you had up there just a second ago before we moved on, that I actually think OU needs a couple more years before entering the SEC. I don't subscribe to this theory at all. Do you? How do you feel about this? Because I hear a lot of fans that feel this way, and they want to get facilities upgraded and on and on and on, or we need time to get our recruiting classes in order and this, and that. I mean, to me, you'll find out when you're SEC ready by being in the SEC. So I don't know. To me, I mean, look, what if you're 7-5 next season? Then are you going to feel like you're totally ready the following year to go? Or what if you're 7-5 the year after that? Then are you, we still just need it. I mean, you might need a couple more years. You might always need a couple more years. So to me, I'm just of the mindset that if the finances are right and everybody's in the, agreement that they've been made whole and the timing and this and that's correct, just jump, rip the Band-Aid off and stop worrying about, are we ready or not ready?
Here's been my stance on this since this news first broke, summer 2021. Man, it feels like, I can't believe it's been that long since the news broke on it. You're always going to be chasing Alabama, Georgia. Like, those are, I mean, Bama had a down year this year, but they'll be back. Georgia is now a preeminent power in college football. You're going to be chasing those teams, whether you're in the Big 12 or you're in the SEC. If national championships is the standard at Oklahoma, what does it matter if you're in the Big 12 chasing a national championship or if you're in the SEC chasing a national championship? The mountain is still the same. You've got to overcome and figure out how to overcome Alabama and Georgia, which was the issue during your time in the Big 12 under Lincoln Riley. And then, they lost to Clemson under Bob Stoops. From the recruiting perspective, our guy Parker, we're going to keep referencing him because this is what his stance on this is. Your recruiting gets better when you go to the SEC, which is crazy to think that Oklahoma's recruiting can get better. Remember, they had the number 8 recruiting class in the 2022 cycle. Right now, they have the number 7 recruiting class in the 2023 cycle. Where would that rank amongst SEC? Also, if you include Oklahoma and Texas, that'd be 5th, behind Alabama, Georgia, Texas, LSU. Oklahoma would be 5th. Like, amongst SEC schools, you're still 7th in the country right now as things stand. If you go to the SEC, and the theory behind that is playing against top competition is what a lot of these kids want, so that they can help their profile for potentially getting to the NFL. We know the SEC sends more players to the NFL than anybody in the country. So when kids think about where they're going to play football, and if they have hopes of going to the NFL, they're going to look to the conference that sends the most kids to the NFL, and that's the SEC. So I think it does help on that front. I've always been of the mind that if you go to the SEC, yeah, you might have to take some licks. But again, if the standard is championships, national championships, getting to the playoff isn't really good enough then, right? Getting to the playoff and then getting beat by Georgia, getting beat by Alabama, it's not good enough. So whether you get to the playoff and get beat by them, or you get in the SEC and you get beat by them, what's the difference? I still think Oklahoma is one of the top 4 or 5 programs in the new SEC. Now it's going to be tough. It's going to be competitive every single year, but that's the beauty of the expanded playoff is you can go in and play an SEC schedule, have a couple losses on your resume, still get into the playoff, and still have a shot at a national championship. So again, I've always been in the mind, if you're going to go, just be there, take your licks, grow from them. I still think that, again, you have to figure out a way to overcome Alabama, Georgia, and then make sure that you stay in that upper tier with the LSUs, now Tennessee's up there, but Florida for a long time has been one of the better SEC schools. Making sure you don't let Auburn pass you by, Mississippi State's, Ole Miss's, those schools. So yeah, just get there and then figure out the rest later. Oklahoma's recruiting is not going to suffer by going to the SEC. It's going to get better. Oklahoma's recruiting hasn't suffered by being in the Big 12 because Brent Venables and his staff is a really good recruiting staff. Is it nice to kind of have a little bit of a bridge time? If you're going in 2024, that's your first season in the SEC. Jackson Arnold, he's going to get a little baptism by fire if that's his first starting season as the Oklahoma Sooners starting quarterback.
Yeah, part of it for me too is, and let's see what happens with TCU in the college football playoff, but man, it's been a mirage, the Big 12 for Oklahoma. And I know that there was no mirage this season for what Oklahoma was finishing 6-6, right? This was not a good Oklahoma football team, but the last however many years, success in the Big 12. Yeah, I'm glad you pulled that comment up, by the way, from Sooners to Win. I was going to suggest we do that. The Big 12 has been a mirage, though, for Oklahoma, John, in the sense that you win this league and then you go in and you flatline against any of these big powers in the sport of college football. So why not just be in the league that has all of them? And then when you beat those guys in said conference, you'll know that when you get to the dance, you can actually whip out your dancing shoes and not go out and embarrass yourself on said dance floor. So to me, just get there as soon as possible, get that payout from the SEC as soon as possible, and give your fans what they want as soon as possible, right? Fans don't want to watch these games with Oklahoma in the Big 12 anymore. They want to see the Oklahoma versus Alabama game. They want to see the OU Georgia game. They want to see OU and Arkansas turn this thing into a rivalry. They want to see the rekindling with A&M, and they want to see OU LSU some venom there. Just real quick on the Sooners to Win comment. We have recruiting momentum. The moment we step foot in the SEC, we get even better, especially on the defensive side. You touched on this, John. I really hope that's true. I've always been of that standpoint as well. I've been harping on that for a long, long time. And even before any of the SEC stuff was announced, after Oklahoma got waxed in the Peach Bowl, I said that night, famously on our postgame show, John, I said, look, OU's not winning a national championship until they leave the Big 12. They're not winning another one. And guess what? Wasn't too long after that, they announced, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and head to the SEC. So I've been on this train that recruiting's going to pick up as soon as you get to the Southeastern Conference.
Yeah, and there's some other really good thoughts in here. 405 Boys says the recruits aren't scared to go to the SEC. Why should we be? Amen, brother. I believe I'm of the same mind. Like, if you're trying to get to if you're trying to get to the mountaintop, you got to go over Georgia, you got to go over Alabama to get to the pinnacle, to get to the peak. So just get there, figure it out. If you're Oklahoma and you think you're one of the best college football programs in the country, you gotta go play with the best. The Nature Boy said it the best, right? To be the man, you gotta beat the man. And right now, the man resides in the SEC, whether it's Kirby Smart in Georgia or Nick Saban in Alabama. Those are the man. So you got to get there to beat them. Kendall, our guy, Okie Long guy, he had a question about, are they still doing pods? No, they're not doing pods. The idea is 3 permanent opponents, which is kind of poddish, but not fully pod-like. So one team might have, 3 of the same opponents, but there are going to be a lot of crossover and kind of, bridging from here to there. Sooners win, 100% correct. Think of the home games we will have once we go to Norman. Josh, what's the game? Like, what would be the road game that you would be dying to see?
Oklahoma at LSU, Oklahoma at Bama, one of those two. LSU, just because of the sheer obvious, just genuine disrespect that LSU is known for its visitors. Just the, Death Valley factor to it, I think, is exciting. And then Alabama, right? The fact that that's been the staple, the standard bearer for college football, and to go maybe win that game on the road would be, there's not a bigger statement, right, that you can make in college football than going on the road right now in beating Alabama, unless, of course, Georgia wins another national championship. Then maybe they've wrestled that right away from Alabama. But one of those two, Georgia would be in the mix as well. There's so many good games that OU fans are going to get treated to with this deal. And that's why I say just get it done sooner rather than later. And what's up with Caravan Okie? What's he mean we're talking like wussies?
He must not have caught the part where we said you jump in. Maybe he's talking about the guys in the chat saying we need to wait a couple years. I don't know. But we're not afraid of the SEC. We're channeling Bob Stoops in this mess. Like, no, the SEC got nothing on us. We're going. We're not afraid. Bring your games. We'll go to Tennessee. I don't care. Knoxville. No, Athens is the one that I'm excited about. Obviously going to Fayetteville, that's like right across the border from me. I'm only like an hour and a half from Fayetteville. So a road trip to Fayetteville would be pretty sweet. But no, as far as like road trip, man, I would love to go to Athens. I think that'd be a lot of fun just to get down there and play in that stadium. Crazy environment. It'll be absolutely nuts, but it would still be a lot of fun as far as just like college football atmospheres go. That's going to be a lot of fun. Man,
they've really, really upgraded the environment out there too. Going to games at Fayetteville in Arkansas, it's a pretty cool environment. And some of the upgrades they've done in the one end zone down there. They got that Walmart cache down there at Arkansas, believe it or not. So it's it'll be a rowdy environment when OU shows up, no doubt.
Yeah, it will be a lot of fun. It's there will be no shortage of great opponents for Oklahoma. I'm still of the mind that Arkansas, Missouri, and Texas are kind of like Oklahoma's 3 permanent rivals. Where do you stand on that, Josh?
Yeah, I'd rather it be Texas A&M than Missouri and have Arkansas and Texas. I've been pretty steadfast in that hope, but doesn't sound like that's how it's going to wind up. So, look, I don't think you can go wrong. Obviously, you got the history with Missouri. That factors at play dating back to the Big 8. So, to keep a piece of that history for Oklahoma probably makes sense, right? You're going to be – if it was the other 3, then you'd only have the old school Southwest Conference schools, right? You wouldn't have any Big 8 games every single year going forward. So from that standpoint, it does make sense to have Missouri. But man, I'm just totally here, basically ready to say, forget the past. Let's dive fully into this SEC thing. But it'll be good.
Yeah. Hey, Tom, thanks for stopping by. I think we are going to have a lot of fun with the SEC. Just it's dream matchups, right? It's the non-conference stuff you dream of. Looking forward to those kind of games on your non-conference slate, but you're going to have them every year. Like one year you're going to get Arkansas, Missouri, Texas, and then LSU and Georgia, and a whole host of games that are just like incredible conference matchups that carry a ton of weight. I know a lot of people think the college football playoff expansion is going to diminish the regular season. No way. Like with the expanded SEC, I mean, those games are going to have so much heat to them just because of the tradition and the history of the programs involved in it. And then, if you're the SEC and you're potentially battling for a playoff spot, like every game in the regular season is going to matter, even if you're not going to be playing for the conference championship. You know what I mean? Like, you still got to win your games. You got to win as many games as you possibly can if you want to have a playoff spot. I think Kyler, you're right. I think Arkansas is the new Oklahoma State, that kind of close regional rival. But I'm of the mind, like you were saying with Missouri and the Big Eight, like they've played each other so many times throughout the course of the history of college football. It'd be a shame to not have that as one of Oklahoma's permanent rivals. I can think back to some of the big, Big 12 matchups they had in the 2000 to 2010s with Chase Daniels and all that. So, but again, just a lot of really, really fun and interesting matchups that are going to be happening with Oklahoma moving to the SEC.
I think Kyler's dead on here. I've said for a while that Arkansas is the obvious replacement for Oklahoma State. And in fact, they're a rich man's Oklahoma State, because generally speaking, they're every bit as good at baseball as Oklahoma State. Right now, they're officially definitely better in basketball, and historically, they're obviously better in football. Now, you don't have the in-state factor there, but the fact that a team in Arkansas, a border rival that really you just haven't played much historically, John, I think is it's going to be huge. It's going to turn into a massive, definite, genuine dislike, I think, between Oklahoma and Arkansas fans. It's so obviously going to turn into a rivalry. And just to our Tennessee friend, Tom, man, I would just say the 8-4 thing being a good season and what this new league is going to look like. And for the Big Ten, too, when you think about all those factors at play and at work, and then the 12-team playoff, I can make, I think, a pretty simple argument for all of the regular season has been diminished folks out there. All of the regular season sucks now, truthers out there. I kind of think that, in a way, it's going to make the regular season better in the Big Ten and the SEC. Now, that might not be the case for, Pac-12, ACC, whatever. But in the Big Ten and the SEC, oh, man, every week is going to be awesome. And yes, I am Joey's little brother, by the way, for our friend on the comment section over there.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those situations where more teams are going to be still in the race. You know what I mean? Like, more teams will be in the conference championship race. More teams will be in the playoff race later into the season, providing just more energy and more heat to those games. Like, nobody wants to see. I mean, we're all going to watch college football. Like we watched Oklahoma when they were 4-5 at one point in time. We were still going to watch. But a game in November where you still have teams that have 2 losses still battling for potential playoff positioning, that's huge. Like, you're going to have more invested fan bases later into the season. And so I think that's just great for the sport. Sooners win. Arkansas already hates OU for some reason, even though they seldom play. So my wife is from Eastern Oklahoma, the Tahlequah area. That's where we live now. But it wasn't long after I met her where I learned that there's just kind of this, maybe not as big of a disdain as Oklahoma and Texas, but there's definitely something there where both sides kind of try to make fun of each other for being, from Arkansas or from Oklahoma. But yeah, Arkansas, Oklahoma, they don't really seem to care for each other. It's going to be a lot of fun. I know, 2024, it looks like that's going to be the time. It's all business. It's about money, but ultimately what's best for Oklahoma, what's best for Texas, what's best for the Big 12, in my opinion, and obviously what's going to be best for the SEC is that Oklahoma and Texas are in the SEC come 2024. And that's going to be really great for college football.
And let's say this about Arkansas, who I have an appreciation for, because look, my sister-in-law went to the University of Arkansas. I spend a lot of time. My brother lives in Northwest Arkansas. I spend time in Arkansas, okay? There's no ill will. I dig it. I can't wait for it to be a rivalry for Oklahoma. But Arkansas fans are so wildly jealous of Oklahoma. Oklahoma is who Arkansas wishes and thinks that they could be. And they're not, and they never will be Oklahoma. And that is where the dislike and hatred between Oklahoma and Arkansas stems from. That's the thing with OU and Arkansas, man.
So basically they are Oklahoma State then, just a little bit further east.
a little bit more successful Oklahoma State.
Yeah, there you go. At least in several other sports. So this team, as they kind of get through the transfer portal, get through recruiting, what is a position you feel like they haven't really seemed to be attacking much right in the portal just yet that you feel like they need to be looking at more?
I don't know. It's tough to get a read sometimes on that with Oklahoma, and listening to the people in the know. And I don't know how much some of these guys have said this, publicly, but I almost think that at times these schools are kind of being quiet about who they've offered or are targeting out of the transfer portal, because it's a little bit different than the recruiting side of this, right? There's a little bit of, if you can keep it deceptive, maybe you keep it deceptive, right? That way, if there's, some other Power 5 schools, you don't want to just like invite them in to the mix. So I do think maybe there's a little bit of that at play, to where we just don't know yet who all Oklahoma is in on. I mean, the high profile guys out there, right? I mean, no brainer. Everybody wanted Deshaun McCullough on campus. That was a huge win for OU. But some of these other guys, maybe we just don't or haven't heard much about yet. But man, any defensive player they can add would be huge. I do think it's a must that they wind up with multiple skill guys out of the transfer portal. One for sure, but to me, I say just bring in 3 and just see where it goes. So, I mean, man, it's a 6-6 football team. What do you want me to say? Outside of quarterback, then just about everywhere else, I'd like to see Oklahoma consider transfer portal additions.
What do you make of Coach Prime? A lot of people seem to be, or at least Dylan Edwards, seem to throw out there the idea that every recruit in the country is going to be up for flip because of Deion Sanders at Colorado. Do you feel like Oklahoma has to be concerned?
Well, if anybody, I'll say this first. If anybody knows about being up for flipping their commitment, it's Dylan Edwards. So he would be a great source on the subject, just given how kind of his recruitment has played out from Kansas. Well, from Oklahoma fans feeling like they had a good chance. Then Kansas State, oh, he's committed. Then, nope, he's going to Notre Dame. Nah, going somewhere else again. So he would know about flipping a commitment. But look, I think he's got some serious momentum, no doubt. Coach Prime is going to recruit. There's no, I think, ifs, ands, or buts about that. He will get players to Colorado, a caliber of player that, by and large, Colorado's, those blue chip talents that Colorado not been getting a lot of those guys, right? And honestly, even historically, save for some in-state kids here or there, I don't claim to be this expert on Colorado ball, John, but just dating back to the 2000s and beyond, when we started really seeing kind of the boom in recruiting rankings, Colorado's not a program, right, that's a top 20 mainstay, top 15, 10 recruiting mainstay. I think with Prime, they got a chance to be that, plus the transfer portal and all that stuff. Now, it's a different beast, right? Getting the players and then, being able to then coach and develop and all those things that go into being a successful Power 5 coach. So all of this long-winded way to say, I think he's going to get talented players to Colorado. I think it's intriguing. I said from day one, John, with you right here, that to me, it was a marriage that made sense on both sides for both Prime and for Colorado. Now I want to see, can the guy get these guys in and then go coach them? I don't know the answer to that last part yet.
Yeah. And the big thing I'm really looking to watch, we had that report, or there was, rumor or innuendo that Oklahoma was going out, or sorry, Oklahoma, the Big 12 was going after the four corner schools, the Arizona schools, Colorado and Utah, for expansion for the Big 12. If you're Brett Yormark, like that adds so much more value. And if that was true back then, how much more true is it now? And bringing Colorado back to the Big 12 and making this another 16-team league, that would crush. Like adding Utah back-to-back Pac-12 champions, adding Colorado with Deion Sanders, and then the two Arizona schools, giving you a Phoenix and then Southern California markets to potentially play in on TV. And That'd be crazy for the Big 12. And if you're Brett Yormark, which, I mean, watching the Big 12 championship game, it didn't feel like the same Big 12 with Brett Yormark at the helm. Like the way that they promoted it, the way that the kind of the production was going on the field, like it just felt like a totally different animal. And I think adding Colorado now to what's going on in the Big 12, I think that'd be huge, even though Oklahoma's not going to be a part of it. Again, I've gone on record and I've said, I really wish Brett Yormark would have been the Big 12 commissioner years ago, because that would have made the Big 12 better than it was under Bob Bowlesby.
Just on the Yormark portion of this conversation, he's done such a good job, man. It's I know that I guess you're still kind of waiting for a splash expansion ad or two, though just, inking a grain of rice should be considered a job well done for starters, right? To keep this league together for those schools moving forward. But even like tying this back to Oklahoma with the report that we saw today from Brett McMurphy, I don't know that Bowlesby could have pulled this off to where things were still amicable at this juncture right now. In that report from McMurphy, John, one of the things that jumped out to me was discussions have been ongoing for months. And guess what? That shouldn't be a surprise, and it's not a surprise. But what was Yormark also saying publicly? He said, nah, everybody's in for the long haul, right? It's good. And yet, really, we found out that wasn't really the case. But because he's had a cool head about it and is willing to negotiate in good faith, he wasn't putting it out there that, oh, by the way, Oklahoma, Texas kind of want a way out of this thing still, maybe.
Well, and he also said at one point that he's always up for a win-win scenario. Like, so being a smart businessman, you never take anything off the table. And that's the same thing that Brett Yormark's done. And he's going to negotiate what's a win-win. Like, he's not going to lose out as the conference. He holds the cards. At the same time, there is motivation on the Big 12 side of things to kind of just create something new and to begin the journey without Oklahoma and Texas. But he's not going to just let them out scot-free. So yeah, it's just a very different Big 12 with Brett Yormark at the helm, because again, he sees the big picture. He sees the potential financial outcome. I mean, they negotiated a big TV deal, and yeah, so I'm total in agreement with you on that one. There was a question back here about Micah Tease from...
Didn't have anything to do with the mechanic and Deion Sanders.
No, it did not. Yes. Sorry, Angie. I find the whole Deion Sanders thing to Colorado fascinating. I know a lot of people don't care. I get it. I apologize for making you sit through Deion Sanders talk if that's not what you're here for. But who was it on Micah Tease? I can't remember. But somebody asked if we're still going to get Micah Tease. I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's been a lot of buzz on that front lately. There it is. Sooners to Win was asking about Micah Tease.
It feels like, and this will upset some Oklahoma fans, that it's got to be in-state. It's got to be in-state. It's got to be in-state. But just given the offers, and maybe it goes back to that again, John, trying to not lure all these other schools into the final chase here. With Tease, I mean, obviously, you're talking about a high school kid, and Braylon Presley, you're not. You're talking about somebody that's been on campus for 1 year. But I just wonder if, the way that, at least publicly, this is happening for Oklahoma, it feels like they're not option 1 or 2 for Oklahoma on the board right now. Would you agree at wide receiver for either Tease or Braylon Presley?
That's what it seems like. It does seem like those two guys are going to be highly coveted. Excuse me. But it also seems like they're going to be in on a lot of guys that they want to add wide receiver depth and talent to the position, either through the portal or through the recruiting class. And we like what we're going to get out of Jaquays Petaway, Keon Brown in the 2023 class, but you don't really want to count on those guys coming in and being significant, role players in year one. We like Jaden Gibson, we like Nicholas Anderson, but again, just haven't seen enough of them to be sure that they're going to be able to be significant players for the Oklahoma Sooners. But yeah, so Tease, I think it's still possible. It also kind of seems like that's moved on, like that, that's kind of off the table at times, like, because again, we're not hearing anything on it. And I feel like we'd be hearing more buzz about it at this stage in the recruiting cycle if there was something more to it. Jimmy's asking about Braylon Presley. this is kind of one of those guys that Josh was alluding to about the dark offers, or the silent or behind the scenes pursuits. Brennan Presley, I think are still legitimate factors for Oklahoma, at least on the recruiting trail and the transfer portal, but we just haven't heard anything about it since that kind of early buzz started.
405 boy asked if we think Oklahoma has better in-state talent than Colorado. I mean, slam dunk, no doubt.
Yeah, I agree. I do. You're not seeing, big names coming out of Colorado. I don't feel like.
Chuck, nice ad, and Bates will be a player. Could be a really good player for Oklahoma, but I just think year in and year out, it feels like there's more high major talent from Oklahoma. And that's not to sit here. I mean, look, we all know that Oklahoma's not, Florida or Texas or California, but the state of Oklahoma puts out legitimate D1 talent year after year.
Yeah. So if we're just going to go straight off of recruiting rankings, the top player in Colorado, a 4-star edge, that's going to go to Oregon. If we're going to look at Oklahoma, they have their top player is by Job. He's got a higher recruiting ranking, even though he's still a 4-star, going to Michigan State. So just kind of the top player, comparative, Oklahoma has the better player on that front. And again, I think it's just the same thing I talk about with why the Big 12 is so successful. It's football country. Oklahoma is in the middle of football country. Kids are growing up playing football from 4 years old out there tackling each other. Is it as big in Colorado? I mean, they love football there, but it's not near as big as it is in Oklahoma. And I think that's just a reality. Like, Oklahoma may not have the same kind of high school, football profile as California, Texas, Florida. But as far as like Midwestern schools, there are going to be few that rival it. It's just huge here. It's big. It's bigger. It's as big, as the NFL, I would argue here. Even though the NFL is huge, I feel like there are hundreds of high school programs in the state of Oklahoma, and everybody is passionate about their high school, whether it's a 3A school or 8-man. Like, so I lived out in Western Oklahoma for a time, went out and watched 8-man Velma Alma Comets. Their stadium was packed, absolutely packed to the brim on both sides to watch this 8-man game on an October Friday night. And there was some good football being played in 8-man, and everybody was incredibly passionate about it. There's one dude, he had his own slogan that he had shirts made. It just said, hit somebody. And he'd say that every time the defense was on the field, hit somebody. And he had a shirt made, and they were like shirts with this hit somebody all across the front row of the stand. So I'm like, Oklahoma is just different when it comes to football. Now, I haven't lived in Colorado. Maybe there's some Coloradans out there that could argue with me on this front, but it just feels like, okay, so here's Hot Carl. Hot Carl saying that Colorado does not have good high school football. It's terrible. Okay, there you go. There's one person's perspective on that front. It just doesn't seem to equate. Lacrosse is huge. Hockey's huge in Colorado, but yeah, football, Oklahoma probably takes the cake.
So we gotta call it a night here at some point. Appreciate everybody, as always, popping into the live chat with us and hanging out for the Locked On Sooners live stream. You guys make this. Really appreciate you. Just 2 final questions, and John, I'll just let you fire away. From Sooners to Win, any new buzz on Trace Ford? I'll chime in and say, not really from what I've heard so far. Nate asked, do we think all of Oklahoma's verbals are signing early?
From our conversation with Parker from last week, and if you hadn't checked out that episode from last Thursday, make sure you go check it out. It seems like a near 100% commitment is going to sign. Like, the 100% of the guys that are committed now are going to sign. Parker didn't really want to put a percentage on it. He said there's always a chance that somebody could be a surprise flip, but it really looks like everybody is trending towards signing. As far as early enrollees, that'll be the question. Who signs in the early period? Who signs on National Signing Day? That's who knows. You don't know a lot of these kids' time frames, but I think a lot of the guys, probably 75% of them, are going to want to sign early, get it done, and get enrolled early so they can be a part of the spring practice, spring ball, spring game, and summer workouts. Like have that full 8-9 months with Oklahoma to get ready for the 2023 season.
Yeah, I don't know that we've heard anybody that's not planning on signing in December anymore, Nate. It's just, I mean, you might have one or two that don't, but it's just kind of the way it goes now. I mean, these guys, if they're committed right now, they're signing in the December early signing period.
Yeah. And yeah, we'll close it there. And just also what our guy Kendall at Okilon guy says, y'all make sure you keep praying for Mike Leach. Still, fighting what seems to be a really serious heart condition after being transported from his home and to Jackson. So prayers up to him. Everybody, thank you so much for being a part of the live show tonight. We love doing this with y'all, interacting with you all in the chat. It's a blast for us. It's one of our favorite parts of the week. So thank you for that. Make sure you share the live show with your friends, your family. Make sure they know about it every Monday night, 9 p.m. Central Time. Again, it's always a blast to do this with y'all. So make sure you keep coming back. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts and over on YouTube as well. Be a part of the show every Monday night. And also be, if you're subscribed on YouTube, when new episodes drop, hit the notification bell, hit the like button. And if you have a mind to it, go leave us a 5-star review over on Apple. We'd love to hear your feedback, and it just helps more people find out about the show. So we appreciate you so much for being a part of the show. For Josh, I'm John. We'll catch you on the next episode.